Late one night in 2010, a couple was driving a dark road through the Adirondack forest in upstate New York when their headlights caught something crossing in front of them. It was chasing a group of deer, moving fast, and it was the wrong shape. Not the low, even back of a coyote, not the heavy, square build of a wolf. This animal was powerful in the shoulders and sloped down sharply toward its hindquarters, its head carried low, its whole silhouette tilted forward and wrong. It reached the middle of the road, and then, instead of vanishing into the trees the way a wild animal should, it stopped. It turned, and for about 10 seconds it stood in the beam of the headlights and stared back at the two people in the car before it finally broke and loped off into the dark. They knew what it looked like. It looked like a hyena. And that is the one thing it could not possibly have been, because there are no hyenas in America. There is no wild hyena anywhere in the Western Hemisphere. The nearest one lives more than 8,000 miles away, across an entire ocean on another continent. And yet that couple in the Adirondacks were not the first people to describe this exact animal on an American road, and they were nowhere close to the last. It would mean less if they were the only ones. They are part of a pattern that stretches across the country. The reports come in from everywhere, and they are unsettlingly consistent. Hunters in East Texas describing a hyena-like animal on 2 separate occasions. Sightings in the Texas Hill Country. A man who reported watching a whole pack of hyena-shaped animals moving through New York City in 2009, not far from the Bronx Zoo, crouched and high-shouldered with low-slung tails. Reports scattered through Louisiana, tangled up with the local chupacabra legend. Drivers on lonely roads at night who described the same silhouette again and again, a heavy front end, a sloping back, a low head, and a strange rocking gait that does not belong to any animal that is supposed to live here. Different states, different decades, different people who never spoke to each other, all describing the same wrong shape moving through the dark. This is the space the whole story lives in. Officially, categorically, there are no hyenas in North America, not one wild population, not anywhere, not for a very long time. The maps are not ambiguous about this the way they can be ambiguous about a cougar wandering out of range. A hyena in America is not a rare event. It is supposed to be an impossible one, and still the sightings arrive year after year of an animal that every wildlife biologist on the continent will tell you cannot be there. And here is the detail that turns an easy dismissal into something stranger, because America is not actually a stranger to hyenas. It only forgot. A little over 1 million years ago, a real hyena lived on this continent. Its name was Chasmaporthetes, the running hyena, a long-legged, fast animal that crossed into North America from Asia over the ancient land bridge and spread south all the way to what is now Arizona and Mexico. For millions of years before that, North America was also home to a whole family of hyena-like predators called bone-crushing dogs, powerful scavengers that filled the exact role hyenas fill in Africa today. The shape that people keep reporting on dark American roads, the sloped back and the crushing jaws and the low hunting head, is not a foreign shape at all. It is a shape this continent wore for millions of years and lost so long ago that we stopped believing it had ever been here. And once, just once, somebody shot one and kept the body. In 1886, in the Madison Valley of Montana, a settler named Israel Ammon Hutchins began hearing something in the night that did not sound like a wolf. It was a long, keening wail, and it came with dead livestock. One morning, he grabbed his rifle and ran out to find something chasing his wife's geese. His first shot missed and killed one of his own cows, but he got the animal in the end, and by the account of his own family, it did not die quietly. As it lay dying, it bit clean through a half-inch rope in a single snap of its jaws and dragged itself toward the family, trying to reach them until the last of its strength ran out. Hutchins handed the strange carcass to a taxidermist named Joseph Sherwood, who mounted it and put it on display and gave it a made-up name. He called it the Ringdocus. It looked like a wolf, but not quite. The back sloped wrong. The snout was too narrow. There were faint stripes along its flanks. And the native Iowa people already had a name for a beast exactly like it, one that appears in their oldest stories, the Shunka Warakun, which means carries off dogs, a creature that slipped into camps in the dark to steal the dogs and was said to cry like a grieving man when it was killed. The mount vanished for most of a century, surviving only as a single grainy photograph in an old naturalist's memoir until 2007, when Hutchins's own grandson tracked it down in the storage room of an Idaho museum and brought it home. It sits today behind glass in a small museum in Ennis, Montana, one of the only physical cryptid specimens in the world that you can walk up to and look in the eye. And there is a modern DNA laboratory that could tell us exactly what it is in an afternoon. But the answer to that question is that no one will allow the test. The people who hold the mount have declined again and again to have it analyzed, unwilling to trade a 140-year-old mystery for a plain answer. So the beast in the glass case stays exactly what it has always been, unnamed. Which brings the story back to the present and to the real question underneath the sightings. If there are no wild hyenas in America, then what are all these people actually seeing? And there are two honest possibilities that are not folklore at all. The first is escape. Hyenas do live in America, in zoos and in private exotic animal collections, and captive animals get out. In 2013, 2 striped hyenas escaped their enclosure at the San Diego Zoo and put the entire zoo on lockdown before they were darted and recaptured. That was 2 animals loose for under an hour behind good fences. Nobody knows the true number of hyenas held in private hands across the country, or how well every one of those enclosures is built. The second possibility is that every so often, something genuinely strange turns up, and even the experts hesitate. In 2006, across several counties in Montana, an animal killed around 120 sheep and screamed in the night, and when it was finally shot, state wildlife officials could not immediately say what it was. It was a heavy reddish-yellow beast that did not look quite right. In 2018, a farmer near Denton, Montana shot a strange canid with oversized upright ears and a sloping back, and the state was notably cagey about identifying it. In both cases, the honest, unglamorous answer eventually arrived. They were wolves. Unusual wolves, oddly colored, oddly built, but wolves. And that is the pattern that repeats every single time one of these animals is actually recovered and tested. Because here is how a shape like this hides in plain sight in a country with no hyenas. It does not need to be a hyena. It only needs to be seen for a few seconds, at night, from a moving car, by someone who is not expecting it. And there is one very common animal that, under exactly those conditions, looks startlingly like a hyena. A coyote with a bad case of mange. Strip the fur off a coyote's body and tail with disease, leave it hunched and patchy and gray, and put it in a pair of headlights for 3 seconds, and you get the sloping back, the wrong silhouette, the ugly rocking gait, the thing that does not look like it belongs. The most famous hyena photograph ever captured in America, a game camera image out of Louisiana that circulated for years, turned out on inspection to be precisely this, a mangy coyote. The reports are not proof that a hyena is out there, but they are proof of how easily the shape of one can appear. So the honest reckoning has 3 parts, and all 3 are true at the same time. Is there a wild breeding population of hyenas living in North America? No. There is no evidence for it, and no way for it to exist. Could a single escaped captive be loose somewhere in the country at any given moment? Yes, occasionally, and it has demonstrably happened. And are the overwhelming majority of the thousands of sightings simply mistakes? Almost certainly, and we can name what most of them are. Mangy coyotes, strange-colored wolves, big dogs, and the tricks that darkness and speed and surprise play on a human eye. Honesty requires going all the way. There have been no native hyenas in America for more than 1 million years, and there is not a shred of hard evidence of a wild one today. The ringdocus in that Montana museum is, by the most likely explanation, an unusual wolf, and the refusal of its owners to test it tells you they may already suspect that. The most dramatic sightings, the ones that describe an animal the size of a horse, are almost certainly exaggeration piled on misidentification. Every mysterious carcass that has actually been dragged into a lab has come back as something ordinary. To believe that a true hyena is stalking the American night, you have to hold on to a belief the evidence keeps refusing to support. Because the real story is stranger and more honest than a simple monster. Nobody is claiming that wild hyenas are migrating to the United States because they are not, and they cannot. What is actually happening is this. America keeps generating a hyena-shaped ghost. It is in the million-year-old fossils buried under Arizona. It is in the oldest legends of the people who lived here first. It is in a mounted body behind glass in Montana that no one will test. And it is in the reports that still arrive every year from dark roads and back pastures, from people who have no reason to lie and no idea what they saw. Whether the next one turns out to be a sick coyote, an oddly colored wolf, or a real animal that slipped out of a cage 2 counties over, no one can tell you before it is caught. So it ends where it began, on a dark road with a pair of headlights and a wrong-shaped animal caught in the beam, and in a quiet museum in Montana with a beast behind glass that has been waiting 140 years for a question no one is willing to ask. 2 things this country cannot quite prove and cannot quite dismiss. Somewhere tonight, on some empty rural road, another set of headlights is going to catch a hunched shape with a sloping back moving wrong across the asphalt, and feel the hair rise on their arms, and wonder whether they are looking at a coyote, or a stray dog, or the animal this land has been telling stories about since long before anyone here thought to write them down.